check your nameplate?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, June 5th, 2018 caucus meeting for the City of Brook Park. Michelle, please call the roll.
Scott?
Here.
Virgil?
Here.
Orcutt?
Here.
Stem?
Here.
Mancini?
Here.
Poindexter?
Here.
Salvatore?
Here. If everyone would, please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving to item 3, discussion. First item is a resolution to extend the building permits or certificates of occupancy for any building, structure, use, or change of use that would enable the cultivation, processing, or retail sale of medical marijuana for a period not to exceed 6 months from the effective date of this resolution in order to allow the city administration, council, and the Brook Park Planning Commission to review applicable Ohio statutes, criminal codes, and the Brook Park zoning code relative to such use and declaring an emergency, introduced by Councilman Scott per President Vecchio. Mr. Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I may, through the chair to the law director. Madam Law Director, this is just a continuation of what we already have, an extension of 6 months?
Through the chair to Councilman Salvatore, yes, that's exactly what it is, just an extension.
And we need to get this passed this evening so we stay in step with what the expiration is of the one that's in place right now?
Yes, and then you could consider other options after it's passed.
Okay. And after after any other questions that they may have, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to place a motion that we place this on tonight's council agenda for.
Support.
Motion on the floor to place on tonight's council agenda. Properly supported. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none. Michelle, please call the roll.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Virgil?
Yes.
Orcutt?
Yes.
Stem?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Poindexter?
Yes.
Motion is approved. This will be resolution number 19-2018 will be under letter M, number 2 of tonight's council meeting. Moving on to item number 2, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with North Shore Pump and Equipment Company without public bidding to purchase 3 dry pit submersible pumps, installation and removal of existing pumps, and declaring an emergency, introduced by Mayor Gamella per Council President Vecchio. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The reason we don't have bidding on this, the pumps are, one company does them, so we'll get a clean fit, no problems, no retrofitting, so.
Mr. Mancini?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Mayor, is this something you might want on tonight's council meeting? Is there urgency on this, or?
Yes, I would say so, yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mancini. Anyone else?
Chairman,
Mr. Salvatore?
I'd like to make a motion to place this on tonight's council agenda.
Support.
Motion to place it on tonight's council agenda, properly supported. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none. Michelle, please call the roll.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Orcutt?
Yes.
Virgil?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Poindexter?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Stem?
Yes.
Motion is approved. That will be under letter M, item number 3, ordinance number 11,026-2018. Moving on to item 4, Legislative Committee, Chairman Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've placed this on here. It's an ordinance placing a moratorium on the operation of any short-term lease rental, real estate rentals in the city of Brook Park and declare an emergency. This here was the one that was introduced by Mayor Gamella. Me and the mayor, as you will see on first reading tonight, as we'd seen at the previous caucus meeting, have a placement on number 1. And as long as the mayor's okay with, letting this one out, I'm fine with that, Mayor. Thank you. Okay, council, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Salvatore, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to have this read in committee.
Support.
Motion, it was read in committee, properly supported. Call the roll.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
It's read in committee, that's all we have in legislative. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, council.
Moving, item 5, Safety Committee, Chairman Stem.
Thank you, Council President. 2 items here. The first one, resolution requesting the Berea School District install additional security devices and enforce additional security measures in all school district buildings to protect the lives and health of every student and educator and declaring an emergency, introduced by Council President Vecchio. Opening the floor up to discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman?
if I may, I don't know if I direct a question to you or to the sponsor. Do we have a broken down list of what the school board and the safety committee that was formed, are there any suggestions that what they're going to do, or
I have
we're not even that far into the process, I don't believe, are we?
If I may, no, I don't believe they're that far in the process yet themselves. I think they're still talking about it and through some of the discussions, as far as my understanding. But my whole thing was to try and get this on before they started doing any of the demolition or anything else with the current Ford Middle School.
But we don't know what they're planning on doing as far as providing safety yet.
No, there has not been anything made public that I'm aware of.
I know we have a resident that's just newly elected to the school board. I know he's made a commitment to make sure that the proper safety is put into our schools. And I do believe a past council member here is also on the safety committee, which is also going to be coming forward with some suggestions and ideas. And I think we should probably just hold off on this and see what they're proposing. And if we're not satisfied with what they're suggesting, then we could take the legislation and come up with our own recommendations and send them over. That would be my suggestion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Council, what's your pleasure?
Motion please back in the committee.
Support.
A motion to place back in committee, properly supported. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, Michelle, will you please call the roll?
Scott,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Motion passes. Second item on the Safety Committee, an ordinance amending Section 141.02 of the Brook Park Coded Ordinance entitled Composition, Executive Head, and declaring an emergency, introduced by Council President Astorino. Open the floor up for discussion.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Councilman?
is there any particular reason why this is before us this evening?
It's a good question. I don't have the answer for that, Councilman.
It's a house
Mr.
cleaning
President?
item. It's a house cleaning item currently. Something that's been sitting in committee since, back and forth from committee since January of last year. Following the council rules to bring it out so it's not sitting any longer.
Thank you, Council
action.
President.
Mr. Chairman?
Councilman Poindexter?
Thank you, Chairman. Council received an email the other day from Mr. Astorino asking if he could address this at the next caucus meeting, so I would like to ask if we can move it to next council meeting and let him talk about it, and then we can, or next caucus meeting next week on the 12th, and give him a chance to talk about this so we can better understand where he's coming from, and then we go from there.
Thank you. Councilman Salvatore?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair, to the mayor. Mayor, I don't know if you've had a chance to look this over, but I really would appreciate having your input as to what your feeling is on this. And I know it's sat in committee for quite a while. The past council didn't move on it, and that was under a different administration. Now we have a new administration. I was wondering what your thoughts are.
Well, Rick, to be frank, I have not had a chance to go over it with the chief, so right now, I'm non-committal either way. I'd like to have the chance to look it over, talk with the police chief, and just go from there.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Scott.
Yeah, through the chair to the mayor. If, just say this doesn't pass tonight, we could always rewrite once you sit down and talk to the, who knows what the numbers that in this ordinance are even accurate anymore. So this is something that's been sitting in committee for, like I said, over a year. Like I said, you should look at it, but if there's any changes, we could always write new legislation, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Council President?
I believe some of what was in the email happened to be with the city, the engineering report that was given to the city for the forecast report of the city in 2011, somewhere around there was mentioned. And if I'm not mistaken, that happens about, on average, it should happen about every 10 years. And the one that took place, I think that was again 2011, 2010, there was a grant that was given for that, I believe. And some of the members of council that were here can correct me if I'm wrong. But and I believe that there's another study that's gonna have to come forth here in a couple years to look at that and forecast for the city, if I'm not mistaken. Anybody can weigh in on that? Councilman Salvatore, Councilman Bergio?
No, I don't have any comment on that. I just was curious why this was even before us this evening.
Thank you, Council President. Councilman Poindexter?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not sure how this was brought forward either. All I know is it seemed like a pretty reasonable request by Mr. Astorino to have it moved to next week where he can talk about it a little bit. He introduced it back when he was on council. I'm not sure how it became on our agenda today, but I think it's a reasonable request if we just move it to next week. Next week's caucus, it's been sitting here over a year, as you guys said, so one more week won't hurt anything. So I'd like to hear what he has to say about it before we totally kill it. On that note, I'd like to make a motion to move it to the June 12th caucus meeting.
Thank you, Councilman Poindexter. We have a motion on the floor to move to the June 12th caucus meeting.
Mr. Chairman?
Councilman Salvatore?
Before you call the roll, as chairman to the safety committee, do you have a recommendation?
At this time, I don't have a recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
We have a motion on the floor by Councilman Poindexter. Properly supported by Councilman Mancini. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, Michelle, will you please call the roll?
Poindexter,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Salvatore,
No?
Stem,
No.
Orcutt,
No.
Bergio,
No.
Scott.
No.
Motion failed 5-2.
Motion is read in committee.
Support.
Motion item was read in committee, properly supported. Michelle, will you please call the roll?
Scott,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter,
No.
Salvatore.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-1.
That's all I have, Council President.
Thank you, Mr. Stem. Item 6,
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Poindexter.
I'd like to make a motion to discuss the ordinance that's in Service Committee, the roads program, more specifically 1802, 1803, and 1804.
I'll support that for discussion purposes. I'd like to hear what you want to talk about.
Motion on the floor to discuss 1802, 1803, 1803, and 1804 from the Service Committee, properly seconded. Michelle, please call the roll.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Motion is approved. Councilman Poindexter, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. So, I'd like to see us get going on some of these roads. I know there's been discussion between the ward council members, the mayor, and the engineer. And I don't know how comfortable each ward councilman is with their new roads list, and they're adding the new roads. But it's my understanding that the original roads that were presented, I don't think any of the discussion has been in removing any of those roads from that original list. If I'm wrong, correct me. But, so my understanding is if we're not talking about removing any of those roads, perhaps we should consider passing that legislation and getting going on those roads, and we can always add more roads down the line once we get our ducks more in a row for the other roads. We don't have to do anything with the money that's proposed to carry over to next year until we figure out what we are gonna do with the roads. I would just suggest that we pass the roads that are already presented, that the engineer is comfortable with and the mayor is comfortable with, and get those items going, and then we can add more streets as the year progresses. That's all I have, thanks.
Thank you, Councilman. Mr. Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to follow up on my colleague's comments here. I felt as though we were trying to get that accomplished. There was a special meeting called, and then it got canceled. I really feel that if we would have had that meeting, we would have been obviously a lot farther along than we are right now. And to pass the roads program without knowing exactly what we're going to do would be very difficult. And I had a conversation with our engineer, and to add roads as we go along would be very difficult to get into the bidding process. I really believe if we have to meet every night this week and then pass something by Friday, I'd be prepared to do that. I think we really need to get together, get this resolved, and put it behind us. We're not accomplishing anything by just bouncing things around and changing roads. We know we have a 2-year plan in place. Everybody has bought into that theory. We did move some money around, and there's still some money out there that we might be able to move around at a later date, but knowing with the understanding that that money will then also be used for the 2019 program. And we're waiting on some answers from the finance director on that Fund 250 that we may be able to put towards the 2019 program. But to belabor this anymore, I think we're only wasting everybody's time. Everybody that lives here and everybody sitting up here, the engineer, the administration, we need to agree on what we're going to do for 2018 and to get it done now, so that we can get the process started and get out the bid and let everybody in our community know what street's gonna be done this year and what the hope is for next year, and then the year 2020, hopefully we'll be on another path. But that's my suggestion, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salvatore. Mr. Stem.
Thank you, Council President. I agree with Councilman Salvador. We worked so hard on this capital budget to make some of this possible, these roadways, and we have to make a decision soon. We just can't keep talking about it. We have to figure out where we're going to go and figure it out. I agree with Councilman Salvador by the end of the week. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stem. I'd like to go to Mr. Piatek for a minute. Ed, you got a chance. You were out with, my understanding, with some of the ward councilmen last week.
Correct.
You want to give a quick synopsis?
I sent an email out to the 4 ward councilmen suggesting that we meet and walk the roads that were suggested at the last meeting. So that happened, I think the last one I met with Jimmy on Friday. So we walked the streets, and I tried to have the councilman look at the roads that they were suggesting through my eyes, and, you know, I don't have x-ray vision to see, you know, through some of the asphalt to see what's underneath, but, you know, some of these roads that were suggested for overlay, I don't think is the best course of action. So, we met with each of the 4 ward councilmen. You know, I threw out some prices of the streets that they had suggested in my recommendations, and that was about it.
Thank you. Mr. Mancini?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Ed, I appreciate that meeting. I'm sure all the other ward leaders appreciated it too. What I did this weekend and is I went and I know all the bad ones in my ward, which is a good chunk of my ward, but I did get some new streets done. And not everything is streets, a lot of them are curbs. But I did go see that the others that I've heard so much about, not that I didn't see them, but I went and took a good look. And I could say Wangler, I could say Sailor, I could say in Councilman Stem's ward, there's numerous over there. What are we going to do? I agree with my colleague, Councilman Salvatore, Councilman Stem. I thought Ed explained things so well. Where he put a little shaking in me is when he looked at one street and says, well, Jim, I look at the street and I see 8 things. And he's talking curb right on through, eight things that could be wrong. And when you do a layover sometimes, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them, 8 things might pop up right after. Now, how would I explain something to people on Dolores when it starts cracking and after a layover, and it starts cracking again in 2 years, where Sylvia and Fry, where I just got new streets? What I say is we have to start looking at some type of a road program after we get whatever we're going to do here done, and I hope it's soon. We have to start looking at a serious road program, because the ones that are bad now are going to stay bad, and then others will start playing catch up in time. Who knows what kind of winter we're going to have. So them are the things that we definitely have to start looking at, because again, besides grass right now, which is kind of the big issue, streets are out there. You guys hear it. People in the audience hear it, and nobody could tell me different. So that's the things we have to look at, and it isn't a cheap endeavor to do. So we know that, and we have known that. But I mean, my colleagues put a lot of time into this, and I love the I look at the roads assessment all the time, and it's scary. You know, and then you see the numbers, and it's even more scarier. But, you know, we have to come to some kind of margin where we could get some things done for some of these streets. So, and again, I would like to do that as soon as possible. So, Mr. Chairman, that's the Ward 2 Councilman's take on the streets. But thank you.
Thanks for your report, sir. Thank you. Mr. Poindexter?
Thank you, Council President. Through the chair to the engineer, Mr. Piatek, how soon would you feel comfortable giving an assessment on the roads that were proposed by the ward council members to adding it to the 2018 roads program?
I'd be prepared to speak to that at any point. I've ran through the streets that were suggested, and I have my numbers.
So we could potentially draft it and add it to the ordinance by when?
Well, you know, I guess we're going to need direction on what the final number is going to be, or what the final decision is going to be on what roads we do. Because if we do the roads that were suggested at the last meeting in the manner that I think they should be done, that's just my opinion, but that's kind of what I'm here for. I think that the roads that were suggested are in the manner to be fixed that I think is upward near $2.7 million. And that's not, it's my understanding, that's not what the budget was approved for. So, I mean, we can talk streets and specifics at just about at any point.
Thank you, Mr. Ed. I'm just thinking here, I mean, that's obviously a larger number than we had hoped for with what our budget allows, and I like to see us get going on some of these roads. So I'm okay with just going forward with the original streets that were prepared. I'd like to see more streets done, but until we get the full synopsis of what it's going to cost and take to do those streets, I mean, we could be talking weeks down the line before we even start planning. So that's just where I stand with it.
Thank you, Mr. Poindexter. Mr. Scott?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, Ed and I, we walked 2 streets on Thursday. The list here has our May 9th list that you were referring to, Mr. Poindexter, has concrete joint repairs on Brookhaven. And just remember that each ward has about $250,000 to $270,000 to work with. That's all we got. So if you look at this list here, Brookhaven, the proposed number is $145,000. After walking with it, it jumped up $200,000. It went to $340-some thousand. So that completely blew my money. Sailor Drive, we talked about Sailor Drive. Sailor Drive went up from 118 to about 160. There's another. So, yeah, we got to move on this. I totally agree with you. But this list here, that our May 9th list it's not feasible. It's just not feasible. Like I said, each ward has $250,000 to $270,000 to work with. Jimmy got cut off. There's roads that Jimmy can't do. There's roads that Ed can't do. There's roads that Greg can't do because we're allocated only a certain amount of money. I think each one of us is down to 1 street now because we can't afford to go any higher. I mean, the roads that I would love to get done is going to cost about $500,000. Well, there ain't no $500,000 in the budget for Ward 4. It's just not happening. We have to do something. Hopefully we get something done this week. I would love to get something done this week. But, yeah, this list here, just the one that was proposed May 9th, it just isn't a feasible list to work off of. And like I said, Mr. Piatek met with each council member. We had our wish list, and I hate to say it, but our wish list was flushed down the toilet. So, yeah, I would love to meet this week. We have to get something done. We have to get something done this week. I totally agree. I think we should meet by Thursday at the latest, and we go from there. That's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Mr. Orcutt?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm glad that we're talking about this because it's very important. I know that there's been a few times where we had capital on the budget. I think it was the first week of April, and it was bumped off just because we had to get a little bit ready and more prepared. Then we also put it on for May 18th for a special meeting, and that was canceled as well for preparation and scheduling purposes. So I want to thank the engineer for that walk. That was a great education I got, especially with Wangler Road. You know, that road is damaged so much that we don't know what's done underneath. So with that said, I was able to take from our walk and break down what I thought we could be doing. I know that Hummel Road went from 82,100 up to about 118,000 with the section that we were talking about.
Is that 118, Mr. Orcutt, you said?
Just under 118,000, I believe, roughly. And those were just some rough numbers. Don't hold me to it. We were just jotting some things down. But with that said, I took those numbers, went home, and put together just a basic list where I made some suggestions and emailed those out. And I don't know, Mayor, did you end up getting that? And Ed, were you able to get my email? You were? Okay. So I put in my suggestions that moving forward, what I think we could do in Ward 3, which would be Hummel, and then do an extensive hot patch repair, crack seal where we can on Wangler. I know that you talked about that being a dangerous thing. And then I think I also mentioned for Robert and Doris the same thing, but I gave you a few selections, maybe about 9 or 10, maybe even 12 roads that we can do that crack sealing. So for Ward 3, I threw some suggestions in, and Mayor, if you've seen those and the other ward councilmen are ready to move forward with something, I'll work every day this week to get this roads program moving. That's all I have.
Thank you. So, Mr. Orcutt just mentioned the other ward councilman. Have you guys taken the time or had the chance to take the time for provisional streets to get a list together yourselves, or no?
I haven't yet.
Mr. Stem?
Thank you, Council President. I have streets, but I need Ed, the engineer's recommendation on what step to take with them.
Okay.
And I concur on that. I mean, I could give you streets, but,
Yeah.
you know, like I said, when we were on Dolores, the engineer looked and said, I see 8 things, Jim, this really probably isn't an overlay. I mean, I'd rather, you know, work in conjunction with kind of everybody on it to get, I mean, I could give you streets. And I could throw numbers together, yeah, but it doesn't say our engineer's gonna okay it.
Right.
I don't know how the administration's gonna feel. It's the administration's choice also, so.
Well, so what I'm hearing, aside from Mr. Orcutt, who's got some written down, the rest of you guys need to take the time with Mr. Piatek again and go look at some other streets, is what I'm getting out of that, correct?
There's nothing on here that could fall into what's left over in my ward. I have nothing here.
Right, but I'm saying provisionally, the same walkthrough that you just did on what your first recommendation was, and that came out to be a larger amount and unattainable, so now there's some other streets that you may have that you're gonna have to get back out with him to go over and see if there's any other issues. So my suggestion would be maybe you guys set up that time to do so, put your provisionals together, get with him, and then come back to the table on them. At least that way you guys are pretty rock solid and have an idea. Maybe take the time, take your 5 or 6 streets that are somewhere in your affordable area, take a look at them with him, and see where the opinion is.
Chairman.
Mr. Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair to the engineer. Ed, you and I had a conversation just the other day, and I felt it was a very good conversation. I think you explained yourself thoroughly as to what your feelings were as our engineer as to the suggestions of the roads. But it was my understanding that you had already had this conversation with the majority of the ward guys. The only one that you hadn't talked to at that time was the Ward 2 councilman. But unless I misunderstood, I thought the wards 1, 3, and 4 were pretty much maybe not exactly jumping for joy for what they'd heard from you, but were under the impression that we were going to go forward with some of your recommendations and get the legislation moving. Did I misunderstand you, or is that not what we're doing?
I guess with Councilman Orcutt, I think I got a pretty clear direction as to what he wanted, and that came over on Monday. I haven't heard from Councilman Stem as to, I mean, we talked, we met, we threw out, options. Independence Court was, I think, $175,000, and Ohio was maybe in the $120,000 range. Somebody's got to decide what gets done and what doesn't get done. Is it going to be, strictly by the book as to the $250,000 that was allocated, plus or minus to each ward, or what? So. No, I don't have clear direction as to what was to be included in this program.
Well, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Continue.
As far as unless what I'm hearing now is that Ward 3 is ready to move, and is the mayor on board with the Ward 3 recommendations? Have you gotten that far?
Rick, in fairness to everyone, the need far outstrips the means that we have. All these councilmen, I think, have done an excellent job bringing these roads to our attention, talking about what they want, and they're absolutely right. The problem is, we don't have the money to fix everything that has to be fixed. So we have to be prudent, we have to be careful, and I applaud them for attempting to do that, as well as yourself. This year we're talking maybe 1.2. Council said 1.5, so we're not that far off. But next year, we're going to put $5 million into roads, and that's not even going to be enough. What we're going to need, not just our community, but all communities, is help with the infrastructure from the federal government or the state of Ohio. Otherwise, this is just going to persist and get worse. And it's not just Brook Park, it's all over the United States. And again, there's all roads we'd like to do. I would like to do every road in the city, but we just can't. So we have to do what we can do in an intelligent manner, and hopefully start to be able to raise some revenue by bringing some corporations in here so that we can start paying for some of these things. Because again, next year, we're looking at 5 million, and 1.2 million of that is gonna come from other sources. So we would be ignorant not to spend that 5 million, because again, 1.2 or 1.3 are coming from grants and things of that nature. And that'll be for Smith Road, Holland Road, and Sheldon Road, all main streets. So council, I very much sympathize with you. I appreciate the discussion, but there's only so much we can do.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, thank you, Mayor, for your comments. I appreciate it. I mean, I think next year is going to be a little easier for us to make a decision, because the decisions for next year are going to be made this year. But right now, we want to get this year's program on the table and get the engineer out to bid on some of these projects so that these roads are going to be done in a timely fashion. And we all know how much money we have to work with. We all know that every road in Brook Park deserves attention, but if obviously we're not going to get that done in one swing of the bat, that's for sure. But we do need to at least get this thing moving in the right direction. And even to say that we got to stick to the 250,000 or 300,000 per ward, even that, if that gets modified or moved a little to the left or a little to the right, so be it. We need to get this thing done, and we need to get it done this week. You know, I think we're all on the same page. We don't have enough money, and obviously the need, it goes beyond what we have to spend. But we do need, what we have to spend needs to be spent, and it needs to be spent now. And we have to agree on getting whatever we're going to get done, give the engineer direction, and everybody has to be on board. The mayor's office has to say yes, council has to pass it. So whatever it takes, if Ward 3 is done, and I would highly recommend Wards 1, 2, and 4, and if Ward 4 is done, and everybody's agreeing that we can get this thing done by Friday, I will make myself available again, any night this week, Saturday, Sunday, anytime, morning or night, to get this done at a special meeting. I don't care what it takes. I don't care if we have to meet 10 times between now and next Tuesday. Let's get it done this week. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Stem?
Thank you, Council President. Through the chair to the engineer. So with two roads in Ward 1 that we discussed, I believe it came to 295. Is that accurate?
Plus or minus, yes.
That'd be a resurface of Ohio and then a joint and curb repair on Independence Court.
Correct.
Okay. To council as a whole, does everybody else have their numbers when they spoke with Ed, so we can see where we're at?
Yeah, I got him.
Mr. Mancini?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, here's where I think we're going with this, because this kind of got my attention a little bit. When I met with Ed, nobody told me on Tuesday night that this was going to pop up. You want me to give you some numbers? What do you want me to give you? Who do I give them to? Ed, the mayor, council? I mean, we're going to do this tonight? Nobody had said anything of that sort. This popped up now. I'll give you the streets. You want my streets? I'll give it to you. You want them crack-filled? I'll pay for that. Okay, I'll take it out of the money. If you want them totally redone, I'll take it out of that money. But nobody brought that up tonight. I got them here. I got every scenario that you guys want with the money that we have. But who do I tell it to? Councilman Salvatore just said the mayor has to say yes. And he kind of over there just a little bit said no. So where are we going with this? That's my take on it. I'll give you streets. I'll give you numbers. I'll give you what I want crack seal. I'll get you what I want reconstructed. But again, the mayor is saying, well, we don't have the money. Are we going to do this tonight? Are we going to do it tomorrow night? When are we going to do it? That's what I think we got to knock out.
Thanks. Mayor?
Thank you. Jim, you know, I emphasize with you, I truly do. But again, the need far outstrips the means that we have. And I have, before I go to the fiscal officer and ask for his comment, I'd like to say the engineer is absolutely right. Before we spend a dime of any money, we have to make sure it's going to be done properly. And I think everybody agrees with that. We're not going to overlay a street just to overlay a street and say we did it. It has to be done right, and I commend him for his diligence on that, because he's absolutely correct. But even when you go to pay for the price of gas at a gas station, the price of asphalt's gone up too as a result. It's oil-based as well, so that's another thing that we're facing. And so I'd like to go to Greg Single, our fiscal officer. And Greg, can we talk about a little bit about this year and the program next year, which right now, we may not have the funds to even cover, we may have to borrow. If you would, please.
Greg, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to use round numbers because I wasn't prepared to speak to this at this meeting, but roughly we had $1.5 million appropriated through the budget this year. 250,000 of that, or about 260,000 of that's engineering for the 2019 roads program. So that leaves us roughly, let's say, $1,250,000. So that's what we have to spend this year. I thought we were going to leave some monies, maybe $250,000 of that $1,250,000 towards next year's commitment. Next year's commitment is roughly around $2.3 million, if I remember correctly. So 2.3 million plus the 250,000 that's being appropriated this year for the 2019 program for engineering services is roughly a $2.6 million commitment, give or take a few dollars. So we have a $2.3 million commitment this year, or I'm sorry, for next year's program. So I think what's best for council is to determine how much of that money that's left for this year, that $1,250,000, you want to carry over for 2019, and then determine from there how much you want to allocate to each ward. Get the streets to the engineer so he can work up the costs, and then bring that package forward in the form of an ordinance. But based on the numbers that I see right now, other than spending down fund balances in 2019, there will be some level of borrowing in the 2019 capital improvement budget. Because I know there'll probably be other needs next year, and then departmental needs will also be coming to city council, as well as the leases that we've entered into in years past and the leases that we'll enter into this year for the police cars, for the rear loader, for the service department, the senior bus, et cetera. So those dollars, will be need to be allocated next year to pay for the leases. So, and then along with our debt service numbers that we have that we pay each year. So, there won't be enough money in the 2019 capital budget to pay for all of the street improvements, the leases, the needs for the departments, which I don't even know right now, and then also the debt service that we pay. So there will be some level of borrowing, or we will be reducing our fund balances. So that's what I see right now in June of 2018. Again, but in order to do something here now, I think, you need to determine how much of this year's money you want to carry forward into next year, and then from there, you have a balance allocated amongst the different wards once you determine which streets you want to do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Gentlemen, I think we should wrap this up through this portion. Obviously, there's not going to be a resolution to this tonight. You guys do have your work cut out for you. So I think I'll end discussion on this at this point, and we'll move forward.
Motion that was discussed.
Support.
Motion on the floor that this was discussed, properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Motion is approved.
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
Motion to adjourn, properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Let the record show that the caucus meeting is adjourned at 7:45. We will reconvene at 7:50 for the council meeting. Council, take your seats, please.
35 million. We could do it, but not all at once. But first of all, we never built.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the council meeting for the city of Brook Park for Tuesday, June 5th, 2018. Michelle, please call the roll.
Scott. Here. Bergio.
Here.
Orcutt.
Here.
Stem.
Here.
Mancini.
Here.
Poindexter.
Here.
Salvatore.
Here.
Everyone, please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag.
One nation.
Moving on to letter C, approval of minutes of preceding meetings. As you can see, we have 7 of them. The first one is a caucus prior to the meeting held on April 17th, 2018. Gentlemen, we can do these as a whole if you'd like, or if there are any questions, we can go down to each one of them. Is everybody taking a chance to look everything over?
Mr. President, if there's no questions,
Chairman,
Mr. Salvatore?
I don't really have a question, just a brief comment on, I had a chance to read them all. It was quite a bit of reading there. I understand that, and I think everybody understands it, that this is just a synopsis. It's not exact, it's not a set of verbatim minutes. I don't want to sit here and make amendments because you forgot a word, or what I think you maybe forgot a word, maybe I forgot to say it, and what you wrote was correct, but there are a few spots that they're missing a word, missing an and, or a the, or an and, something like that. So I don't think we need to do that, just so everybody understands it is a synopsis, and there might be some misspellings. If we're gonna do a mass motion, everybody understands, especially Richard, he had I think it was 11 mistakes on line 12. They were all his.
Under letter E.
But other than that, I just wanted to make that comment, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salvatore. Mr. Mancini?
Mr. Council President, thank you. I concur with my colleague. I know sometimes a word or an I is not dotted, and I just kind of consider them typos, and it happens with everything, so with every piece of legislation. So I even do it myself. So if we could do it in a mass motion, I would be more than happy to make that first motion.
Council, then I will accept a mass motion to approve all 7, so these, and I'll read them off. Caucus prior to meeting held on April 17th, 2018. Regular council meeting held on April 17th, 2018. Special council meeting held on April 24th, 2018. Caucus prior to meeting held on May 1st, 2018. Regular caucus meeting held on May 1st, 2018. Caucus prior to meeting held on May 15th, 2018. And a regular council meeting held on May 15th, 2018.
I'll second that motion.
Motion on the floor, properly seconded. Discussion? Seeing none. Michelle, please call the roll.
Mancini.
Yes.
Poindexter.
Yes.
Salvatore.
Yes.
Stem.
Yes.
Orcutt.
Yes.
Bergio.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Minutes are approved for all of those priorly read. Moving on to letter D. Reports of standing committees, aviation and environmental. Councilman Poindexter.
Thank you, Council President. Nothing new to report today.
Thank you, Mr. Poindexter. Moving on to the Finance Committee. Councilman Scott.
Finance Committee has nothing on the agenda. Board of Controls met today. We approved 22 items. That's all I have.
Thank you. Legislative Committee, Mr. Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Legislative Committee will have a ordinance on first reading tonight and a resolution on second reading. And that's all we'll have tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mancini. Parks and Recreation Committee, Councilman Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Rec Commission meeting for this past month, it was canceled, so I really have nothing to report from the commission itself, but I did have a chance to stop in the Rec Commission, took a look at the new council chambers, and in my opinion, I think they're coming along pretty nicely. They're looking pretty good over there. I know it's a long time waiting. I don't know how far behind we are or where we stand, but from what I've seen so far, it seems to be moving in the right direction. And I just want to remind all the members of council that Director Elliott gave us the applications for the parade, if you're going to be in it, if you're going to have a float, so make sure you get that back to Mark so that he can get his job done. Other than that, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Salvatore. Planning Committee, Mr. Bergio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Planning Commission met yesterday. There was only one item on the the agenda. It was a request for aesthetic approval for renovations at 13600 Brook Park Road, Metro Lexus. And it was for aesthetic approval for the updating and remodeling of the facade and the exterior, and also to convert the car wash into a public car wash. And it was approved unanimously by the commission. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Bergio. Moving on to the Safety Committee, Councilman Stem.
Thank you, Council President. I have no report this evening.
Thank you. Service Committee, Councilman Orcutt.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Bulk pickup. It occurs the second Monday of each month, and that's coming up this Monday, June 11th. It's our next scheduled bulk pickup. So you need to call the service department. This is very important. Call the service department the Friday before, which would be June 8th by noon. And you talk to Robin, and it's very important for you to get on the schedule so that our service director can do proper scheduling. And then also, just wanted to mention for all the residents that have been calling about their yard waste that can't get it up to the service department, it can be placed in the regular rubbish can under the two conditions that the yard waste is put in a separate plastic bag, and that, of course, the can lid still can close. And that completes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Orcutt. Board of Zoning Appeals, Councilman Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. Board of Zoning did not have anything on Monday, so that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to letter E, reports of special committees, Southwest General Health Center, Trustee Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The committee that I chair, the nominating committee, we met at the end of May, and we come up with our recommendations to the Systems Board, and all of our recommendations were passed unanimously at the Systems Board meeting. I'll just read off what we did pass. The system appointees to the Health Center Board were going to be Mr. Brassell, Ms. Harold, and Mr. Shepard. The Systems Board appointments to the Foundation Board, Dr. White out of Berea, our own Mark Elliott for Brook Park, Ms. Brassel for Columbia Township, Ms. Stushal for Middleburg Heights, Mr. Hazard for Olmsted Falls, and Mr. McLaughlin for Strongsville. We also appointed all the seats for 2018 through up to 2019. The chairman will remain Dr. Pandrangi. The vice chairman will be Mr. Muhak. Our president will remain Mr. Young. Secretary, Mr. Bartolotto, and the treasurer will be Mrs. Harold. We filled 2 vacancies, one from Berea will be Gregory Sponseller, and one from Middleburg Heights will be Kelsey Lauschen. Other than that, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have. Well, there one comment I wanted to bring, just touch base on. I was approached by one of the employees of the city was questioning the attendance of the some of the board members, and I took the time to put together some numbers, and I'm only going to report mine. I'm not going to get into others at this time, but my attendance record for 2015 is at 100%, 2016 is at 90%, 2017 was 100%, through 2018 is 100%, and for all my committee assignments through the current date is also at 100%. But I do appreciate the individual asking me questions about attendance, because I think it's given me reason to look at some of these other boards and commissions, especially ones that people are receiving compensation for. I think we should look at some of these records of attendance records for people who are getting paid and contributions are being made into a retirement fund, and they may or may not be attending the meetings. So moving forward, I would like to, I'm going to look into some of these and sit down with the finance director and the mayor and to see what we can do as far as maybe looking at the way compensation is distributed for those who aren't attending meetings. But other than that, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Salvatore. Berea Board of Education Committee, Ms. McDonald is out of town. Mr. Poindexter, do you have anything there?
Not a whole lot, just other than the school let out last week, and I'd just like to wish all the teachers and students and faculty and staff a safe summer and an enjoyable summer. It expects to be a busy construction season for the Berea City Schools, and I look forward to reporting on some of the progress at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to letter F, reports of boards and commissions. We do not have any this evening. Letter G, introductions of resolutions of commendation. We do not have any there. Letter H, reports of communications from the mayor. Mayor Gamella.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This week, we met with the Bree Superintendent, Michael Shepard. As you know, Memorial School is going to be closing, Ford's going to be redone, and also Brookview will eventually be closing. And we talked with him possibly about acquiring some of that property. And with those conversations will continue. Also, we had a nice tree planting over on Engle Court, right across the street here on Saturday, at no expense to the taxpayer in the city of Brook Park. All the trees were planted with private funds, and I'd like to thank Tony D'Amico, my chief of staff, and also Jim Caucus, the former treasurer, for helping us put this through. The people in Engle Court were very happy, and again, we had 24 trees planted. No city personnel were involved, with the exception of Tony, who volunteered his time, and I've got a picture of him pushing a wheelbarrow, just in case you guys don't believe me. He was working. So, but it was a really nice event and went extremely well. We met with the contractor for the recreation center today, and that's coming to a close, that part of the project. The whirlpool should be up and running extremely shortly here. They're being tested currently as we speak. And again, as Rick said, you know, it looks great. We still have issues with the pool area that we're gonna have to address down the road because of the 3 adjoining walls to the recreation center, but we will do that. And we're gonna make sure that the project turns out to be excellent for the community. Because again, it is the center of the community, the recreation center. And finally, we put a proposal in for Swage Lock for the World Headquarters and Development Center. And we made a very good offer, and council's aware of this, over on the west end of the city of Brook Park. They were very impressed with what we had to offer. They were extremely surprised at how much Brook Park had to offer with the closeness of NASA's back gate there, the airport, the interstate systems. They were very, very surprised. A lot of people, when they think of Brook Park, all they think about is Brook Park Road. We have a lot more than that to offer. We have a fabulous tech park back there. We're going to try bringing Swage Lock here to the world headquarters, probably around 300 jobs that pay $70,000 plus, which could possibly add $500,000 to our tax base. So again, we're being extremely assertive on this. I want to thank our Economic Development Director, Scott Adams, for all his hard work, and Council for your support. I appreciate it very much. And that ends my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Stem.
Thank you, Council President. Through the chair to the mayor, is it possible to try to set up a meeting with the superintendent, you and I, and Chief Maud and Foster to talk about school safety going into the new elementary school?
We could definitely do that.
Okay. Thank you.
We will do that.
Yep.
Mr. Mancini.
Thank you for recognizing me, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mayor, on them trees, and that was in my ward, and them residents there are very grateful and they're very happy, and it does look beautiful. Will we be getting any other extra trees? There, not many. I know most people want trees down on the tree lawn, but will we be getting any extra trees to maybe put out within this summer or fall for the residents at all that need them? I only have maybe 2 or 3.
That's a real possibility. We're looking at that. And again, I want to stress those trees are privately donated, so no taxpayers' dollars are used. So we can even put those on private property. And Jim, I fail to recognize you too. You're instrumental in that program, and we appreciate everything you did too.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. They're very happy. Mayor, 2 other things, if I may, Mr. Chairman. The grass. The complex looks beautiful now. It was cut, it was trimmed. It probably didn't look that way, but again, the grass is growing, and I seen it was cut. Maybe some of our problem areas, I could probably ask our service director, Mr. Gardner, but, and I know they're short-staffed. I know that. We could cover that type of thing here for a long time, but some of our areas off the beaten path, Brook Park Road, things of that sort, will we be attending them soon? I know it's wet.
Absolutely.
Okay. And Mayor, one more thing, and it's probably not the best of news. I was at a merchant today in Brook Park, and a longtime merchant at Brookgate, and he had told me that he would not be renewing his lease come February. And I guess one of the things is, and I congratulate this administration with that Swade Lock. That's a big plus factor for us. But you know, The owner of the business told me just the rent was too much and he'll be leaving. The one next to him, I know it's somebody we all know. He had said that this is probably not the best management by no means he's ever dealt with over there, and he's been there for 50 years. And I know Mr. Adams is working hard. I think we have to, a little more, maybe as administration, as a council, that's one of our main areas, Brook 8. And it kills me and to see that parking lot so empty, so much in the middle of the day and at night. I know a couple merchants are doing pretty good there, but when we have our regulars getting ready to pull out of there, not a good sign. So, you know, I will talk with you and Mr. D'Amico a little more on this week, but it really, you know, as me and Mr. Councilman Salvatore were talking today, it's heartbreaking to hear something like that for a longtime merchant that we grew up with. So I wanted you to know that, but we could have this discussion this week.
Thank you. And we have had those discussions with Brook 8. Myself, the Economic Development Director, I've had conversations with the Ward Council, Mr. Orcutt, as well on it. And we're on top of it. We're doing whatever we can do. But again, it's a privately held strip, but they're going to comply with our laws and regulations. But we're going to stay with them, and we're going to stay on them about it.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Poindexter.
Thank you, Council President. Through the chair to the mayor, do we have any update on the National Truck and Equipment Company? Have we looked any further into that, or have they counteroffered or anything of that nature?
Hopefully, the economic, I don't see their offer changing, but I wouldn't quite call a dead issue yet. The Economic Development Director and I were talking about that today, and we'll just keep approaching it. You know, it's gone from a 100% deal now to maybe a 10% deal. The individual's looking elsewhere, but then again, I'd still like to get that here, and I know members of council would as well. So again, we'll be bringing that up at a later date.
And one other question. When can we expect an answer from Swagelok as to when they'll accept the deal or not?
They had literally probably 30 or 40 offers, and they did get back with me, the gentleman's name, and it escapes me right now. He's an Australian gentleman. He was very impressed with our presentation, what we had to offer. So we probably won't hear anything for a few months.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair to the mayor. Mayor, just my monthly question. Are we anywhere on the lateral transfer? I didn't miss any meetings, did I?
No, you didn't miss any meetings, Rick. And my commitment to you still stands. If we have a meeting on lateral transfers, you'll be there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Orcutt.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mayor, last report you talked about, you're going to have a phone conference with Ford Land. How did that meeting go? Is there any land that they're going to be giving up?
I hesitate because, quite frankly, let's just say we had a conversation. I think we're making progress there. And at the proper time, if things come to fruition, this council will be the first to know about it. I can guarantee you this. You won't read about it in the newspaper and then hear about it. We'll have an executive session and you will hear about it. But I've been working on this for quite some time, and to say anything would not be responsible. So I'll just leave it there at this point. The good news is that Ford has told me, made a commitment, they will break that away from Ford Manufacturing to Ford Land. And so things are being talked about there.
That sounds like one step in the right direction. Thank you very much. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
It is. You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Orcutt. Anyone else? All right, Mayor, one question, and actually it's more of a comment, but there's been some grumbling and rumbling throughout the city of roof material falling inside of the pool within the rec center and leaks within the new roof. Is there any truth to these statements? Or can we put some of these to rest? Can you put some of this to rest?
I can put it to rest. Yes, we have had leaks in a new roof, and we addressed that today with the contractor. And Mark, you can correct me if I'm wrong, those leaks have been fixed. However, there's some issues as a result of the leaks, but some of the leaks in the new roof they just put in were pretty bad. But they have corrected them, and as far as things falling into the pool, you have to remember, that area's been vacant 4 years, has been looked at. I believe something did fall off the ceiling, a piece of wood, for instance, and again, it's not a safety hazard to this point, but I've told councilors from day one and everybody who will listen, that roof's got to be addressed at the recreation center. And we have people looking at the walls right now because of the lack of the vapor barrier. When it was built back in the 70s, some of the walls may be crumbling. And these are 3 common walls it shares with the recreation center. So to protect that $5.2 million we put in, we may have to put more money in, and that's why I'm hesitant on the roads as well. Because I see what's going to happen. When I get a full report, we will get it to council, we will sit down and discuss it, and let the residents of the city know what's going on as well. Because in the end, they're the ones we work for.
Thank you. Seeing no one else, we'll move on to letter I, reports of communications from departments, commissions, and other public officials. Today, we're going to start with our finance director, Mr. Single.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Monthly reports for May will be distributed in the next few days. As always, if there are any questions, please let me know. And that concludes my report tonight.
Thank you. We'll go to Rec Director, Mr. Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to follow up a little bit with the mayor's comments, we did have a meeting, a very good meeting, and it really talked about just closing out the project and some punch list items. Where we did have some leaks, those tiles and the ceiling will be replaced. Some have been, the others will be. And all that is now repaired and good. And just Councilman Salvatore was even in the building the one day. The piece of wood that is being mentioned is about 1 foot long and about 4 inches wide that came down. That was all it was, nothing more than that. Other than that, the water park is ready to go. We're just waiting for the weather to cooperate here and be a little warmer. The first outdoor movie will be at the water park on Friday, June 22nd. The Whirlpool, steam room, and saunas. The final piece is the Whirlpool in the men's room. That should be completed, we believe, tomorrow or Thursday. So those should all open up. The locker rooms will become available probably Monday, I would say Monday. Little League is in full swing. And any other questions you have, I'd be more than willing to answer those. I did provide the letter tonight just to remind you about the Home Days Parade, and there obviously are many other preparations we're doing, but just want to make sure that you realize the date and the time, which is different than it had been. So that's all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott. We'll go to Law Director, Ms. Sorvath.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no specific report at this time, although the next meeting I will have a list of the pending civil cases for council, and I hope some other information for council with regard to the opiate crisis and some of the pending cases in federal court and what issues that may present for our city. But other than that, I have nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you. Move on to our Service Director, Mr. Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, council. Past couple of weeks, we've done a couple of projects at the rec center. We're finishing up with one, almost done with the kitchen. We're working at the front entrance of City Hall. We did complete our work at the outdoor pool, and it's underway. We've put 41 tons of hot mix out so far. This was in May. The sweeper went through the city. We ran it 8 days, probably made one trip through the city. We had 5 camera jobs, 5 sanitary storm repair jobs. We responded to 87 sewer calls for the month of May. Our snow plow damage list is completed. Certainly, if you think you were missed, please give us a call. Tree removals. We've done 47 trees so far this year. We are catching up with the stumping and seeding. They are working on that this week, and hopefully we can get caught up with that. There are 17 trees still on the list to be taken down. We're mowing grass every day, some of it the same grass, by Friday again. Places that don't get mowed, you can certainly tell, possibly wet. We'll be cutting places, if it stays dry, we're gonna try to cut places, hills and stuff that are kind of treacherous to run the mowers up and down. We pay close attention to those things. They do get a little long, and we will be working on those. Bulk Monday for my final is certainly June 11th. Councilman Orcutt touched on this a little bit. Very important to call in due to scheduling, so that we can cover the whole city, and it upwards towards 90 tons of rubbish in one day. It's a big move. And that completes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner. Move on to the engineer, Mr. Piatek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Contractor was back in town last week to address issues with the 2017 sidewalk repair program. He spent a couple days out in town, and I believe that he caught most, if not all, of the landscaping problems. Consultants for the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District were in town last week installing flow monitors and doing some manhole investigations at various locations throughout town. That will continue here in the next few months. I'm hoping they get some smoke testing done on some of the sanitary sewers as well. So some of that will be coming forward here in the near future. Lastly, I just want to let everybody know that, or council know that, I'll make myself available at any point, this week to talk about roads, recommendations, and hopefully come to some type of resolution so we can move forward with the roads program. That's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Piatek. Questions? Mr. Orcutt.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Ed, the tests that are being done on the storm sanitary, are they reporting to you just yet on anything, or do they have to complete this whole testing process before you get any word on any areas that may have major issues?
Typically, the consultant will upload the data to the sewer district to a GIS system. I think if they find something, major, that they'll notify either myself or the service director. But as of yet, I haven't heard of any major issues that would require immediate attention. So
Okay.
I haven't been notified of anything at this point.
Has there been any testing over on Pickway yet? Have they made it over there?
I don't know for certain. I know that area was brought to their attention for, to pay particular attention to as one of our, troubled areas. I know there's some flow monitors that were to be installed over there. The flow monitoring process, I believe, is going to be spread out. They're going to do some this year and some next year. Again, this is a 3-year study. So, if there's something specific, I could, definitely inquire. But if it hasn't been done, it's definitely was brought to their attention that it needs to be looked at.
Thank you. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Orcutt. Mr. Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair to the finance director. Greg, have you gotten an answer on the Fund 250 yet?
Through the chair, Councilman Salvatore, as soon as the audit's complete, I will sit down with the lead auditor and discuss Fund 250 with her and have a report for council after the meeting.
Okay, if I may continue. Greg, have you had a chance to take a look at what the impact will be with the closing of these schools as far as revenue?
Through the chair to Councilman Salvatore. I have initially looked at it, working right now on the 2019 tax budget. So the The projection in the tax budget will show what we believe will be the impact for the closing of the two schools. But I did look at it a couple years ago, and again, we continually review it, and it'll become part of the 2019 budget. So we have looked at it. I don't remember the figures off the top of my head tonight, but it has been reviewed, and it'll become part of the 2019 budget.
Would you mind if I give you a call in a day or two, if you can get, a day or two, if you can get those numbers to me? I think that'd be important for us to know what they are.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Mancini?
Thank you for recognizing me. Thank you for recognizing me, Mr. Chairman. First, through the
Mr.
chair
Mancini, you
to,
don't need to clap, sir.
Ed, to our, Ed, our engineer. Ed, when we've had these rains, the hard downpours, if we have gotten any flooding, anything of that sort that we are not aware of up here, or?
I haven't been made aware, but Randy's probably better suited to answer that question.
Okay, we'll confer to Randy, and so far it sounds good, but Mr. Gardner.
No, there's been, as a matter of fact, over the weekend, there was no calls of any sort. I think Saturday night, it rained pretty hard for 15 minutes or so. So, no, there's been nothing.
That's a good thing. And if I may, through the chair to Mr. Gardner, Randy, I know you don't have the numbers that we used to have down there, and I know a lot of things are getting done. You had said sewer calls, bulk pickup. The grass is growing as the meeting's going on tonight, and they've done a great job. Is the Vector going out?
We ran the Vector 2 days this past, last week. Ran our trouble mains and checked a couple of memos on a catch basin. So that's about it the past 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Chairman, if I may, one more, and that would be to our Recreation Director, Mr. Elliott. Mark, I've been at the games. Obviously, I have a few teams, and I have a softball team. So far, things look like they're going pretty good with our baseball program so far, no?
So far, so good.
Okay, and I did want to give a compliment to the rec center. I did see where the snack bar came out, where the bar came out, and I like it. It very much opens up that whole area. Can't wait to see when it gets done, but it's a whole new effect up there, and that's a great thing. I don't know whose idea that was, but that was a very, very good idea. So hopefully we can have multi-purposes for that too.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Salvatore?
Thanks again, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair to the service director, I just wanted to say thank you for a fine job that your crew did. I'm not going to mention the street, but on behalf of the majority of the members of that particular street, they all say thank you very much for a job well done. A big thanks goes out to Tony and the mayor, who also had an input on getting some things done that were long overdue. So again, let the guys know that quite a few people are saying thank you tonight.
Thank you, sir. I'll pass that along.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you, Mr. Salvatore. Seeing no one else, I have a question. Mr. Elliott, I just want to tell you and your staff, great job so far with this baseball season, softball season, with as many games. People that are keeping score are doing a great job, and Randy, the fields are very well, except for some coaches who are out there in the rain.
Next.
Even making up for that is great. But thank you, gentlemen, and I know the kids appreciate it.
Jeff Podovic.
Thank you, yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, we will move on to letter J. Other communications, petitions, and verbal approval. Introduction of new legislation under verbal approval. First item is replacement of desktop computer for the council clerk. Connection sales quote of $909.74.
Motion to approve?
Support.
Motion on the floor to approve, properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Bergeau,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
motion carried.
Motion is approved. Item number 2, proposed changes to the 2018 Caucus Council meetings and summer session schedule.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mancini.
Thank you. If it's okay with council, I'd like to move this to the next council meeting on the 19th till we get this streets program worked out. I think we're gonna have some meetings here, so.
Mr. Mancini, you're going to call for a special meeting anyhow, in between that, so.
Well, I know, but, I mean, to vote tonight, to move schedule around and take some meetings out when we're still, I just don't think the protocol is appropriate for it right now. And I don't see no harm in it. We're not gonna miss any meeting between now and 2 weeks, so.
Mr. Stem.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to say I would support Councilman Seedy on that. Our workload is just way too heavy now with our agenda. We have to, we have benchmarks and deadlines to meet, and I don't feel comfortable supporting these changes today. So I'll support his motion.
Mr. Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As one councilman, I wasn't going to support it tonight anyway, so if you want to move it to another date, I'm not going to support it then either, so if you got the votes to move it, I'm okay with that. I'm still going to be a no today and tomorrow. Thank you.
So, the motion to move to,
Put it in the form of a motion.
the motion to move, proposed council and caucus meeting summer sessions changes to, the next council meeting, which would be the 19th of June.
Support?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Salvatore.
Is the motion just to move the summer session or the entire schedule?
Everything.
Okay, so.
Proposed changes,
So you're looking to move
2018
item number
caucus and
2.
council meeting summer session schedule, I just said.
Under verbal approval, under the same approval.
Under vote, yeah.
All right, so you want to move item number 2, proposed changes to the 2018 caucus council meetings and summer session schedule to the June 19th council meeting under verbal approval.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Properly supported. Rick, I think we discussed it. Let's go ahead and just take the vote and move on. Michelle, please
I
call the
just want to
roll.
make sure we're voting on the right thing, because the schedule says revised 2018 caucus and council meeting, says nothing about summer session. So what are we moving a summer session, or are we moving
says
the
meetings and
revised
summer
council agenda schedule that's in front of us tonight?
It's the dates that they have on here for the proposed changes that were discussed to the 2018 council, caucus, council meetings, and summer session schedule. So everything that was there is what they're looking to move.
Okay, I'm just going by what it reads. Thank you.
All right, Michelle, please call the roll.
Mancini.
Yes.
Stem.
Yes.
Poindexter.
Yes.
Salvatore.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Bergio.
Yes.
Orcutt.
No.
6-1.
Motion is approved. Is moved to the 6/19 meeting scheduled date under item J. Moving on to letter K, miscellaneous business appointments and confirmations. We don't have any this evening. Letter L, remarks from the audience on any subject matter. Come to the podium. Please give your name and address for the record.
Joan Markusik, 13911 Bellbrook. I, at the last meeting, addressed the fact that I wanted to have a meeting with the mayor and had a meeting with his administrative assistant, secretary, or whatever. After discussing the improvements by 71 on Snow Road, everything was very vague. I got information from his assistant, and at the meeting, I had information from the mayor. So I made a public records request to find out how much the service department employees were paid during their time when they should be mowing and taking care of city property, but were overdoing the project on Snow Road. I also asked for the amount for the planters that are now on Snow Road. My disappointment is that I have been hearing that it's a city-funded project, then I hear that it is a group-funded project. Therefore, since I was not sure where the funds came from and our city employees are using time to do a project that could possibly be a city club project as opposed to a city project, made me a little disappointed that other areas of our city are being neglected because a city club needs assistance of our city service department to do whatever that group has gotten together to make our city a better place, or whatever they have decided to do within their group. My disappointment came when I received a Snow Road Planters form. I find it very ironic because I also got a little snippet, which, why did you kill a tree to put this little bit of ink on a piece of paper? I'm disappointed because I made the remark at the podium that the mayor has a $5,000 slush fund and he can use it as he deems necessary. And the total wages come into $4,198.32. And then I have on this paper that something was purchased. I have no idea what it is. I don't know how much of whatever cost $750 was given to some gentleman who I have no idea who the company is or anything else about it. My disappointment is also with the fact that our city needs assistance. We're shorthanded, our roads need done, and our mayor is saying that he's not willing to support our roads because we don't have the funds. Our rec center pool area is falling apart, and that has been going on for years. And every time that something comes up or an idea comes up to correct that issue, it's always, we don't have the funds. I understand we don't have the funds. What I don't understand is why we are not allowing a trucking company to come into our city because you have some kind of reservation about it. This gentleman, I was sitting in the audience when this gentleman was giving his business plan and everything else. And I know I'm not in the trades, and I know I don't have your jobs, but if somebody is that eager to come into our city, put a business where he is accessible to view by a freeway, and that is where he gets the majority of his business. He has already 2 companies that are up and running and are very, very successful. What is your gig? You don't want a successful business in our city? What's going on? You know, it's like we're sitting with that dump over there in the Ford plant, and you're working with them. That's fine. But you know, right now, this company wants to come in, they want to build their business, they want to bring revenue into our city, and you're turning them down. The Ford company's been sitting there since God only knows when the city started, and they're jerking us around, and you're working and bending over backwards for them, and you're ignoring everything else that could be right here, right now, and bringing money in. I don't care if the Ford company brings business anymore. It's old. This is old news. If they come and they bring something, fine. But stop ignoring these people who want to be in our city. And as far as this goes, this is a crock of crap. I don't know who made this up, and I don't even really care. But if this is how they do their job, they should be fired. Because if I ever, on any job, did some kind of stupid papers like this, when somebody asks for something, I would be losing my job. And if somebody ever worked for me and gave me something like this, I tell them that they're fired. And I'd get somebody that's responsible. And you guys need to be held accountable. I want to know, did the city pay for this? Did the mayor pay for this? Did a club pay for this? And what is this? You just handed somebody $750 from somewhere? You nuts? Our cities are bad. Our streets are bad. Our city's going to hell in a handbasket. And you guys are handing out this money, and you're not even telling us where it's coming from, where it's going. You're giving some strange man $750. You know me, I live in this city. Other residents live here in the city. Why don't you start handing them $750? If you're handing it out, give it to the people who live in your city, because you aren't doing anything else for us.
Ray Peterlund, 5811 Wangler Drive. Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Mr. Peterlin, before you go, because you've given us a handout, could you make this a synopsis and shorten it for everybody so we've got this to take a look at instead of reading the whole thing? It'd make it a little
I'm
easier.
doing this for the people that are here and the people that are watching on the internet. In a synopsis, I've already narrowed this down as much as I possibly can, and I try to stick to it. Thanks for removing my 70-foot maple tree. The service personnel did an excellent and professional job very quickly. They said they would bring some grass seed to repair the area, patiently waiting for seed. Mayor, your garden looks nice on Snow and Ice 71, and I hope Rick Sabator is satisfied with it. Wrong side of the tracks. If you're on the north side of Smith or Snow Road, this is for you. Forgotten people. When I was growing up, I had a favorite, Uncle Lou. He lived in Wickliffe, Ohio, by the Black River. He had everything we could want, motor scooters, fishing boats, etc. we could use. But there was something that he could not change, flooding in the spring and neighborhood dirt roads, which every spring the city would come out with a truck and oil the roads down to keep the dust down. I asked my Uncle Lou, why don't they do something better about it? He thought for a moment and replied, Ray, it'll never happen because we're on the wrong side of the tracks, and because of that, nothing will ever change. What does this have to do with Brook Park? Well, Wangler Drive, with flooding and mosquitoes and other things that have happened there. Recently, Council, I was told before this meeting here that our 60-year-old street will get another layer of asphalt on it for $200,000. Now I'm understanding in this meeting this may not happen, but instead of a rebuild, they never asked the people living there their thoughts, or some of the city officials that were against makeshift asphalt on top of many layers already. We had low curbs to start with, most of which disintegrated over the past years to be replaced with asphalt. Second, water can no longer find its way to the catch basins. Bad in the summer and an ice skating ring in the winter. On the other streets, they were done 100% in concrete with new aprons. New concrete, yes. Can you believe the city, according to our mayor, needs $45 million for new roads? Fry and Sylvia had 110 trees put on it for a cost of approximately $60,000. We had to put those trees in now? We couldn't have waited? I don't understand that. Why do some get concrete and others 100% asphalt? This is throwing away $200,000 in temporary repairs. Please reconsider the job and do it right the first time. Put this back in committee. Give it a second look. We have been waiting 60 years, so what's another year or two? One more thing before I close. I came before council about the new sidewalk that was holding water on my sidewalk. The city sidewalk. The city came out for a look-see, then came back late last fall to spend a good part of a day surveying every inch of that total sidewalk when I only was having a problem with one piece that I didn't have a problem with before they repaired it. Weeks later, late November, they came back and did a little grinding of the joints between the old and the new concrete. Too late in the season for a water test, and grinding did not fix the problem. It may require more grinding because it's still holding water. And that's all I have. Thank you.
My name's Balashino. I live on Sailor Drive, one of the oldest residents on the street. I've been living there for over 60 years. In 1972, the street was repaved. This is 2018. 45 years. My street has not been repaved. It's in terrible condition right now. It needs to be repaved, and you don't want to do it. You keep saying for the last 45 years, we don't have the money. We don't have the money. It's a dead-end street. It's a half a street, and you won't do nothing for us. Us residents are getting mighty disgusted with Brook Park. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. My name is Laura Mertel, and I have my family's home now on Remora Boulevard in Brook Park. When I
Ms.
came-
Martell, what do you need a full address for the home, please?
I'm sorry, 16236 Remora Boulevard
Thank
in
you.
Brook Park. When I came home from Florida, I was dismayed at the condition of the streets. The neighborhood is declining. There is not a lot of care taken with trees anymore. There's a lot of dead trees. The pool was a disappointment. I bought my grandchildren a pass in Brooklyn for $125 for the summer last year because we had no facilities here to offer them. My car was damaged yesterday. An expensive car was damaged on our street at 16012 Remora. The sewers are, the asphalt and the sewers do not meet. And the sewer lid is so low and the asphalt is so high and ledged that my front bumper, my car is very, very low because of the style of it, and my front bumper is cracked. The woman that lives at this house put in reports a year ago for help because they're skinning their tires. Nothing was done. Our service department, she said, came out not too long ago and did a very light patch on the one side. Randy acknowledged my parents' driveway. We blew out a front tire on a 11-inch decline, a hole right before her house. My neighbor has one, so when you back out, you skin your tires. Randy came out for us, and he did have John put a temporary patch on my mother's drive. But in the meantime, I have a car with a damaged bumper of $1,800 to repair it, and that is just a loan for the bumper. I'm driving a Mercedes, and it is a very low-riding car. I feel that the damage for my own personal vehicle is sad because I don't want to have to go to my own insurance company. I'm not crying the blues to you, but I'm sure many other people have had damage due to our roads. My mom's house was deplorable when I took it over, and this is what I want to share with you, because the city, in my opinion, has declined to almost something that was deplorable compared to how it used to be. I took 6 months, and I've been cleaning and polishing and trying to restore her home. And little by little, I'm watching the beauty of this old home come back with hard work and with elbow grease. So I suggest that something's done with these roads, something, even if you can't do a complete repair, please take all these hazards and repair the hazards so children aren't tripping on the sidewalks, so people aren't losing their car wheels and destroying their personal vehicles. I just want to say, Randy, thank you for whatever you are doing, and I want to also thank the the garbage department, the service department, because they've helped a lot of times when I had to haul things out recently, because my dad, when he passed away, was a hoarder. So they've been there to help us. My dream is, if I have to live in this city, that this city would be a good city again, a very clean city again, a well-maintained city. The tree lines are maintained with healthy trees. People do not trip where the hydrants are in the sinking hydrants, and the children can be safe walking down the sidewalks. And that's my plea. That is my plea to our city. Thank you, Mayor, for hearing me. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Susan Barber, 5819 Robert Drive. I'm on the timer, 6 minutes or less, as was said with the last council meeting. I want to comment on what Joan said. I'm kind of agreeing with her. I'm going to call you, the new council, the obstructionists, because you obstruct new businesses coming in. I totally agree with Joan that you should have accepted that offer from that trucking company. I mean, we need to get all the revenue we can, so you are the obstructionists. So I want to point that out to you. And you know, there's a saying, you snooze, you lose. And you are definitely losing when you're snoozing. I want to also say, last time I was here about Ward 3, here is the pictures of the garbage that I went, I got them in color too. When I was walking the streets, I don't think any ward should have garbage because some of the residents don't give a darn about their properties. And I don't know if anything we could do about it. So that was my comment about Ward 3 being the pits. So I'll give this to Mr. Orchid if he wants to see it. I don't think I should walk down any street of my ward, which is Ward 3, and have to look at garbage. And I don't have the time to be picking it up. I would pick it up, but I have other things going on in my life. And I also wanted to stress, last time I was here, I had started a 501c charity called Brook Park Help Thy Neighbor. This is legit. I spent money to have it, federal ID, state ID, and it is a legit organization. I do have a website, Brook Park Help Thy Neighbor, and I have Gmail, parkhelpthyneighbor@gmail.com. So if anyone would give me some recommendations of seniors or disadvantaged seniors who can't do their yard work, if they can't afford the landscaping companies that the city of Brook Park hires, do give me a holler with the residents that help me, the volunteers. We will go out and do their yard work. So I need their name, their address, their telephone number, and they have to be home before we do their services. So that's about it. Everyone have a good evening, and please change your image from the obstructionists to the doers. Thank you very much.
Hi, Liz, 23065 Cedar Point Road, Brook Park. I don't know where to start. First of all, the petitions that are going around for the Charter Commission, I don't know why everybody's hiding the petitions and making it out to be a joke or whatever. I had someone hide it so I couldn't read it or look at it or anything else, which I was told that that's basically illegal because petitions, anybody can see them, anybody can read them, and I don't agree what's going on right now because there's people out there with these petitions that read them to the people and kind of force them to sign them, and then they hide them from people that they don't want to see them. I'm not playing that game. It shows you the maturity of the city. I came up here to talk about the ward people. I live in Ward 1, way over on the west side. Now, it shouldn't be up to a resident to call the building department, to call the service department, to call everybody to get things done. My neighborhood's been a joke for years. The first time I lived over there was in 1975. I don't see much changing, but there's a lot of issues there. And I think if you're a Ward 1 person, I think you should walk the neighborhood, walk with some of the residents, and see what's really going on. There's things over there that you couldn't imagine what's going on. And I think that's totally wrong, because I'm leaving September 1st. And to sell my house is going to be a joke. People do whatever they want over there. They do things like putting driveways in on the weekends. They take backhoes over there and might go down the street and do whatever they want for the neighbors or whatever. We got people that don't take care of their houses, and there's grass up to almost to my hip. I mean, there's cars sitting there without license tags because there's an ordinance. You gotta have a tag, but the state of Ohio, you don't. I mean, there's just a lot of things, okay? I have all the permits in a book on where I live. Everything is legal where I live at. We got an asphalt driveway, we did everything. We were told by one person to put gravel on the side of our driveway because he would write us up for having mud that goes into the street. We won't go there with that one. I'd like to know, what is so hard for us to clean up the wards? I mean, it's ridiculous. I have an ex-mayor lives over there and a mayor that lives over there. They live on a side street. I don't comprehend this. The neighborhood's going to crap. I mean, if you want to move on with this city, I think you should take each ward and walk around it, talk to people, tell people there's ordinance about certain things and everything. And that I have a neighbor, she's 80-some years old. I already had somebody laugh at me about selling our house. They said, why would we want to live next to that? What does that tell you? Then I have another neighbor that's allowed to rent his rooms because he lives in the house, but I looked up an ordinance saying that even if he does live in that house and he is renting his rooms, that he's supposed to let the city know who those people are in that house. Okay? Because we don't know who those gentlemen are. They could be a sex offender like a family member of mine. They're not on the list, but they have 5 counts on them. I have a family member that, this is what irritates me. He's a person of interest of killing a little girl. How do I know that my neighbor isn't? I got a right to know who's over there. Just like they have a right to know about us, and they look us all up. But my neighborhood needs to be cleaned up. And I'm tired of everybody being able to do what they want on the weekends. Like I said, there's backhoes, people build things, people do things without any permits or anybody coming around looking at it. If that's the case, I'll put a 40-by-40 barn in my backyard, which is not legally allowed, but if you do it on a weekend, you can do anything you want. So all I'm asking is, it's your job. A resident should not be the one calling the city. You talk to the ward gentleman, like Mr. Stem, and then he pursues it. I shouldn't be all up in everybody's face to get something done. I shouldn't be up in everybody's face that, hey, what's your problem? Why can't this get done? Or whatever. It's not my job to go to Ted and go, hey, Ted, I need this, I need that. It's not up to me. I should be able to tell my Ward 1, Mr. Stem, and say, hey, these are the issues that need to be straightened. Come over here, start looking, start doing, start talking to the city. Okay? That's the way I look at it. All right? Get off that subject. The gazebo, sore subject. I know the parts were supposedly ordered. Nobody proved to me that that was ordered on a piece of paper. But it's not my issue. My issue is with that gazebo is there should be a yellow piece of ribbon around it or something saying caution on that rail. that rail is busted up and the old parts are put back on. Now, to me, I would have done something totally different. I would have put a safety thing there about that. Because you know what? I have a boyfriend that weighs 350 pounds. If he leaned on that or grabbed it the wrong way, bam, he's busted a hip or an arm. The city, I don't think, thinks of anything outside their little head. You know, not outside the box. They just think what's in the box and what makes them look good. I think you need to look outside the box before somebody gets hurt, somebody sues this city, and just like my hand, I sent a picture to the mayor of my hand, how I got cut. Blood all over the place. 5 times I tried to tell the mayor what was going on over there. 5 times. Tony never called me back. Nobody seemed to be concerned over it. Nobody seemed to be concerned over that glass. Nobody seems to be concerned over that rail. So you know what? I don't believe in suing anybody. I let it go. And the reason I'm saying it up here, because I know we got all these other issues and everything, but you're showing that you have no compassion for anybody but yourselves and what makes you look good. Have a nice night.
All right, seeing no one else coming forward, we're going to move on to letter M. Introduction of ordinances and resolutions under first reading. Item number 1 is ordinance number 11,025-2018, enacting Chapter 1122 of the Brook Park Codified Ordinances entitled Short-Term Leases, introduced by Councilman Mancini. Ordinance number 11,025-2018 has had its first reading. Number 2, resolution number 19-2018. Michelle, do you have that in front of you? I got it. Resolution to extend the building permits or certificates of occupancy for any building, structure, use, or change of use that would enable the cultivation, processing, or retail sale of medical marijuana for a period not to exceed 6 months from the effective date of this resolution, in order to allow the city administration, council, and the Brook Park Planning Commission to review applicable Ohio statutes, criminal codes, and the Brook Park zoning code relative to such use and declaring an emergency.
Motion to suspend.
Support.
Motion on the floor to suspend, properly supported. Discussion? Seeing none. Michelle, please call the roll on suspension.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Perugio,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Motion to adopt.
Support.
Motion to adopt, properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll on adoption.
Scott,
Yes.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Perugio,
Yes.
Resolution number 19-2018 has been adopted. Item number 3 is ordinance number 11,026-2018, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with North Shore Pump and Equipment Company without public bidding to purchase 3 dry pit submersible pumps, installation and removal of existing pumps, and declaring an emergency.
Move to suspend?
Support.
Motion to suspend, properly supported. Discussion? Seeing none, Michelle, please call the roll on suspension.
Mancini,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Perugio,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Suspension is approved.
Motion to adopt.
Support.
Motion to adopt, properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll on adoption.
Scott,
Yes.
Perugio,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Ordinance number 11,026-2018 has been adopted. Nothing else under letter M. We'll move to letter N, second reading of ordinances and resolutions. There is one, resolution number 17-2018, authorizing and directing the placement of a veteran parking space in all municipal parking lots and declaring an emergency, introduced by Councilman Mancini and council as a whole.
Motion to suspend.
Support.
Motion to suspend, properly supported. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, Michelle, please call the roll on suspension.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Poindexter?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Stem?
Yes.
Orcutt?
Yes.
Persia?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Suspension is approved.
Move to adopt.
Support.
Motion to adopt properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll on adoption.
Mancini?
Yes.
Persia?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Orcutt?
Yes.
Stem?
Yes.
Poindexter?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Resolution number 17-2018 has been adopted. Is it under letter N? Moving to letter O, third reading of ordinances and resolutions. We do not have any. Letter P.
Mr. Chairman, before we go, I'd like council to give a big cheer for our colleague, Councilman Bergioli, as his anniversary today and his birthday tomorrow. I think that's quite an achievement, so let's give him a big round of applause. All right.
Thank you. More for my wife than me.
Councilman, I would like to, I would definitely like to congratulate your wife for being able to put up with you for those 47 years, sir.
She needs an award. that's for sure.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you, everybody.
Letter P, gentlemen, up for adjournment.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir, Mr. Salvatore.
does anyone want to address any of their, address council on any of the comments that were made here this evening? If they do, I'll make the motion to address.
No motion.
address
I'll
the-
support
the
that.
audience.
I'll support that.
Making a motion?
Yes.
Motion on the floor to address the audience. Properly seconded. Mr. Orcutt.
Okay.
Discussion? Seeing none, Michelle, please call the roll.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Orcutt?
Yes.
Persia?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Poindexter?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Stem?
Yes.
Motion is approved. Floor is yours, gentlemen. Mr. Salvatore, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to address a comment, or actually from the written article here from Ray Peterlin. Thank you for putting my name in your report. The answer to your question, it's not exactly what I had in mind, but far be it from me to criticize anybody who's donating their time, their money, their hard work that went to make that improvement there. But if you were at the meeting when we were discussing it, and if I know you weren't there in 1999 or 2000 when we first started talking about doing something there, but I was trying to get it to mirror what we did on the snowboard underpass, so it would be uniform. But that's not to say that we can't do it somewhere down the road. But I do thank everybody who took the time and the energy, and I do know a few people that made some donations to make that all happen. And no, it's not exactly what I want, but again, I want to thank everybody who put in the time and energy. And thank you for putting me in your report. I also would like to address Susan Barber. I don't see her here. She left? Yeah. I do take exception to the word, what did she say council was?
Objectionist.
Obstructionist.
I really take exception to that because I put my heart and soul in the decisions that I make, and I've made a lot of them over the years. And I feel as though I've been on the right side of more issues than anybody in the history of the city. And when it comes to selling property that is owned by the people of this community, I'm not going to just give it away because somebody walks down the street and says, I'm going to bring in a handful of jobs and you're going to get $15,000 a year. That isn't going to solve our problem. And right now, we're in what you call negotiations. And negotiating is an art. And it's our obligation as elected officials to negotiate on behalf of everyone sitting in this audience, everybody watching at home, everyone living in every house in the city of this Brook Park. And if we can get more money for something that you own, then we're doing the right thing. And I challenge anybody to sit up there and if you own that land, would you sell it for less than it's worth? Would you really do that? Because I wouldn't. I wouldn't do it for me, and I won't do it for you. We're going to get the best we can. We're going to find the jobs. It just doesn't mean just because something's vacant doesn't mean we got to sell it. There is something called the future. And sometimes the deal that you didn't make is the best deal you made. Just like the mayor now is negotiating with a great company. And if they come to Brook Park, it's going to be $500,000 a year. Now, that's something we should be jumping up and down for. And going to bed at night hoping and praying that that deal becomes a reality. But I'm always gonna do what's in the best interest of this community, regardless of anybody coming to that microphone and trying to take an obstructionist. I don't think so. I applaud everybody on this council that has taken the time to do the right thing, for the right reason. And I will continue to do that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Orcutt?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. A few people I'd like to address, because there's a lot of people from Ward 3 here this evening. And the first one was Mr. Peterlin. A lot of the things that you had brought up in your letter to us is a lot of the things that the engineer and I had spoke about. So with that said, a lot of the things that I think do need to happen to your street are extensive hot patch repair. And I do think that, I wouldn't use the word ignored, but in the 5 months that I've been your representative, that's a street that I've been working very hard to make sure that we do something for you. And then to I'm sorry I didn't get your name, I couldn't hear that well, but the nice lady from Remora, if you wouldn't mind, after the meeting, I'd like to speak with you one-on-one. Your street made it on a very high top priority for a request that I just put in to the mayor, because your street is heavily damaged. I do recognize that since I drive around the city all the time. And then to Mrs. Barber, I wish she wouldn't have ran, because I'd like to talk to her one-on-one and get some of those pictures. But if she is watching on the live stream now, one suggestion that I would have for her is that she can always give a call to me. I know she has my number, and if she hasn't, I will be dropping off at her house, or possibly she'll join us for our Ward 3 picnic this Saturday, and we can talk a little bit. But I have to agree with my colleague, Mr. Salvatore. There is no obstruction here. All we're doing is we're working with this administration, and there's some things that we can't talk about out here on the floor, but we're working extremely hard with the administration to do what's right for the people. We're not trying to throw your money away. There's things that we could provide for you right now that would show you that we did the right thing. So if you're watching, I will be stopping over at your house within this next week, or hopefully I will see you on Saturday, and we can discuss some of the issues. But to the lady from Remora, if you could just stick around for a few moments, I'd like to talk with you. And that's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Mancini?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The people that came up to that mic, to me personally, if you're going to come up to that mic, please stick around to do the hit and run, to call us what you called us. Sue Barber, I love her. I've known her a long time. I know her son very well. But to come up and make a strong comment like that, you know, sometimes I sit here, I drove around all day Sunday. I cut 2 grasses, but I drove around this city all day Sunday, and I want everyone to know this, that this is still a good community. Have you bothered to look in a Plain Dealer, seen the home sales? Okay, they're high. As a matter of fact, they're above the board, okay? And I'm going to tell you right now, I drove around, and I also went out of my ward. I called Mr. Scott. I went to Sailor, because I heard. I did go to Sailor. I don't know if you heard it. I pulled over there.
46 years.
Okay, on that, it was built in 63. It was built in 63. It was done in 1986. We agree with you. I get the floor. I'll be with you in a minute. We agree with you. And if you heard us before when we talked about the streets, how touchy a subject it is. I mean, he feels one way, I feel one way, everybody, but we want it done. And the thing is, we got to fight and work hard to get it done. When people come up or they put out a paper and throw a hit and run, they won't tell you the 9 things that are good in this community, and there's a lot. You've stayed here this long, a great resident that came back. Ray's been here forever, Liz and Joan. You guys come to the mic all the time, you speak your heart. On the business, I voted to move it to the next council agenda. Councilman Poindexter supported it. My colleagues felt another way. We're going to get it worked out, but it's not easy and it's hard decisions. But we need the community. It's coming. We're going to need a community. Roads, roads, roads. Okay? And the administration's hearing it. Ed hears it. Ed'll give you these assessments on the streets. They're scary. It's really scary. We hear you. Okay? As council people, we're working to do that. There isn't one person up here that isn't working to do that. You know, we're trying to enhance the rec center, our streets. My dad lives on the corner of Remora and Dolores. That's where I grew up. I know you know that, and I know you family too. And we want what's good for your daughter, your granddaughter. You know, we appreciate you coming back into Brook Park. You came back for a reason, and we want to give you that. And we're trying, and it's not going to be easy. But there's a lot of good things here, too. And sometimes people, when they're at that mic or I'm out and about, they fail to mention that, and I got to kind of, hey, it ain't so bad. Things are happening here. A lot of people tend to be coming back, and they're paying a good price for a home to come back here. So there's got to be a little something right. We're going to work on them streets, though. You guys are absolutely right on that, and I will not disagree with that. But I rode around. It's our city. Like me and Councilman Salvatore were talking today. It's our city. It's your city. We grew up here. We're not going to let it fall where we're selling homes for 40, 60 grand. It's not going to happen on our watch, okay? And not on the administrations and these directors. It's how we feel, okay? So that's my take on it. If they're going to come to that mic and you're going to give a couple blows, I'm going to stand tall because we got some tough years coming, and I'm ready for that. Okay, and I think my colleagues are too in the administration. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stem.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to thank Mrs. Sayers for coming up and talking. When I replied to your email seeking additional information about your concern, we must have had a gap there. But I'll be more than happy to speak with you offline after the meeting. Thanks.
Is that it? Thank you. Mr. Poindexter?
Thank you, Council President. Through the chair to Ms. Mertel, you know, some of the issues that you raised are some of the issues why I ran for council in the first place. You know, having no pool and having the bad roads and some of the other issues in this community is what compelled me, some of the things that compelled me to run. I have young children. You know, I'm a working class person. I like to come home from a hard day and have a nice community and a nice scenery around. So that's what I'm working for. You know, I'm kind of new to the job, a couple months in. You know, bear with us. We'll try it. You know, we got a long life ahead of us, hopefully. I'd like to address Susan Barber's comment. You know, the night that they came in and presented, I made a motion to move it to the next council agenda because I was under, you know, obviously I feel as like my colleagues do, is if the price for that property was a little low. I had hoped that we could, you know, move to the agenda, get it on first reading, and at least show some good faith that we were moving forward with it. I think the price could have probably been, you know, negotiated, you know, through the process, and if we didn't like it at the end, we could have just voted no on the ordinance altogether. My colleagues saw it differently, and we have to move on and try to, you know, try to get it back to where we want it. So I don't think we're obstructing anything. It just sometimes it goes your way and sometimes it doesn't go your way. You know, that's just the nature of the beast. But everyone up here is working hard. We're trying to get people to come in here, trying to get businesses to come in here, trying to do the best for our city. We all live here. We all have stake in this. Our kids all live here. You know, our families are here. So we all want to see the city do well. So I don't think anyone up here would obstruct that. Other than that, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poindexter. Mr. Scott?
Yeah, I promise I'll be quick. Angelo, over here. Ange, Rich. Angelo. Hey, every day I'm getting phone calls from Sailor Drive, and you're not the only one. I've addressed every one of those issues. I've come over, I've spoke face to face with everybody. I was honest with you. I told you from day one that we're trying to do what we can on this thing. Number one, I think I even told you that your Sailor Drive wasn't even on the list at the beginning of the year. I did tell you that. We're working on it. I tried to do it last year, okay? We're working on it, and I'm still working on it, buddy. I'm letting you know. I know you're pissed. You have the right to be. You've only heard it for a year from me. Well, I'm working on it, and you know that. I know.
Gentlemen.
I know. And I just want people to know in Ward 4, there's probably a few of you that are a little perturbed with me due to the fact that you got a citation about your lawn. I just let you know that every week I drive 2 or 3 times through the ward. I write down the addresses for the lawns that are in districts not cut, not taken care of. My wife goes with me. I write it down. I turned in 46 homes the past 2 weeks. I care about this city. I have 1,600 homes in Ward 4. If I'm turning in 40-some people, you know, it's something that's got to be done. So if you want to get mad at me for doing that, I have more people that are supportive of me turning them names in. Go on. We're working on it.
You ought to be ashamed of it.
Okay.
All right, gentlemen,
Thank you.
1972 was the last time it was repaid.
take a motion to go back to the regular order of business.
Motion so made.
Some support.
How long do I have to wait to get a decent street?
Motion to go back to regular order of business, properly supported. Mr. Bellasimo, they'll talk to you. They'll take this offline as soon as we're done with the meeting, sir, and speak with you. Motion to go back to regular order of meeting, properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll.
Mancini,
Yes.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Bergeron,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes,
Motion to adjourn.
support.
Motion to adjourn, properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Bergeron,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Mancini, Poindexter.
Yes.
Motion is approved. This meeting is adjourned at 9:17. Good night, everyone.